Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is John Hewitt, and he is the founder of Loyalty Brands. Welcome, John.
My pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, John, you've over your lifetime, you've done a lot of franchises. You've created probably two of the biggest tax franchises that are out there, and then have moved on from there and created, Loyalty Brands, which has another 6 to 8 franchises behind that. Can you talk to us kind of where you were and what kind of got you started into wanting to create these franchises?
Yeah, I can give you my 55-year career in about 3 or 4 minutes if that helps.
Perfect.
And I have founded two of the top 100 largest retail brands, not just tax brands, but two of the top 100 retail brands in the country. And I started when I was at the University of Buffalo, 1969, took it to H&R Block tax course, loved it. 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block locations. My dad was the CFO of a public company, and he had bought one of the first Apple computers by mail. He loved it, and he liked it better than the mainframe running his public company. And so in 1981, we both quit our jobs and built the first tax software for an Apple computer. No one wanted it, way ahead of its time. Got my big blessing and found Mel Jackson Tax Service here in Virginia Beach. We bought 6 offices from his widow, and we set out to be bigger than H&R Block. H&R Block had 9,000 locations. We had 6. We just needed to add 8,995 offices. Well, over the next 15 years, we merged the two companies, changed the name to Jackson Hewitt. We went public and sold it for $483 million. It went on to have 6,000 locations. I had a non-compete that lasted for 3 years, but it didn't cover Canada because Jackson Hewitt's never gone to Canada. Having grown up in Buffalo, I knew the Canadian tax system. I had done Canadian returns. So we opened Liberty Tax in Canada. And within 3 years, became a top 100 retail franchise chain. So now I've done it once in the US and once in Canada. Looked at the United States in 2000 when my non-compete ended and came back and competed. Now I had to compete against my own name, my own software, my own people. And yet we grew faster than Jackson Hewitt and H&R Block combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years, top 10 fast growing franchisor ever. So I built 2 chains, one of 6,000, one of 4,000. It was a public company worth $500 million again. I built 2 public companies worth $500 million. And again, sold my stock, and now we have Loyalty Brands. And as you mentioned, we have 8 different franchisors, and they fall into 3 categories. One is my 55-year career of tax and accounting. One is construction, led by our roofing and siding and solar. Fastest growing by far, though, is our pet division, led by our mobile grooming. In just 3 years, we're already the largest mobile grooming franchisor or business in the country. We are in the top 1%, fastest growing of all franchisors in the United States. So that's my 55-year career in a nutshell.
When it comes to franchises, a lot of people think that it's plug and play and that they don't have to do anything to make it work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my job as a franchisor is to give you the best system in the industry. And I've been doing that for 55 years. That's what my expertise is. And to give you the operating system, your job is to turn on the engine and run it. My favorite 10 2-letter words are, if it is to be, it is up to me. And if it is to be, it's up to you. I've created 1,000 millionaires over the years, and many of them thank me. Not all, but many of them thank me. And I say, well, I just gave you a nanosecond. opportunity and you took it and ran with it. So I'm not going to do the work for you, but I am going to create a opportunity that is rare. And if you seize it and use it to its potential, you can be extraordinary.
What are some of the common mistakes people make when they get into owning a franchise?
It comes down to one mistake. As I said, my job is to give you the best system in the industry. Now, I brought in 5,300 entrepreneurs in my career, 5,300 franchisees. You would think, Gary, that they would listen to me. But do you have children?
Yes. Yep.
You can understand that they don't listen. I think of my franchisees like children. And out of the 5,300 franchisees, none of them have listened 100%. Now, I can promise you, when you don't listen, it's going to cost you time or money or both. So the one common theme that differentiates a winning franchisee from a losing franchisee is how much they follow the system. The winners, the superstars, they listen 98, 99%. I've had 1,000 millionaires and 1,000 went out of business. The 1,000 that went out of business listened less than 90%. I don't know why they gave me any money and just wouldn't listen to my advice. That's just crazy. You cannot listen to my advice for free. You don't have to give me any money.
Right.
Listen.
Right. After creating, Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax, what made you want to keep going and build these other brands that you have?
When I was a kid, when I was in high school, I was just as self-confident as I am now. However, I hadn't earned it. And I tell my son, you're just as cocky as me, but you haven't earned it. I was cocky and I thought I grew up poor. Somehow I knew I was going to be wealthy. I knew I was going to become a millionaire. And I said to myself, I was cocky and naive in my high school. And I said, I'll just make a few $1 million and retire. And that, in a high school kid, that sounds pretty good.
Right.
Well, once I became an adult and grew up and became mature, I realized that the journey is the joy. And the treasure at the end of the rainbow is the anticlimactic. It took me 15 years at Jackson Hewitt it took me 15 years at Liberty to get a company worth $500 million. The journey is the joy. And our mission statement in our company at Loyalty Brands is having fun, improving lives. And that's how I live my life. There is no bigger joy on this planet than improving other people's lives. And so that's when I come on a podcast, when I meet people, when I bring in a new franchisee, my goal is to improve their lives. And so I can't imagine, I know 99% of the world retires, but they got to kill me to stop me. I can't imagine, with all the experience and knowledge and wisdom that I've gained, to go sit on a beach somewhere and not share it. God didn't give me all these blessings just to go sit and waste away and not share it. So I'm required to share, and which is wonderful because it's so joyful.
Yeah. When somebody is looking at getting into a franchise, I'm going to take, the pet grooming for example. Do they need to have any experience of pet grooming to be able to be successful with the franchise?
Well, let me answer that in two ways. Only 3% of our franchisees at Zoom and Grooming know how to groom a dog or a cat. Only 3%. And in the tax business, which I've done for 55 years, I've only been in pets for 3.5 years. But in the franchise business at tax, half of the people came in with no experience, zero. And what I found is, if I took the half that had no experience against the half that had experience, the ones with no experience did better, because the people with experience have bad habits. And the reason you get a franchise is a great franchise is because they have a great operating manual. And if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. No, you don't need any experience. And you need to act like a CEO, but there's no CEO classes in this country.
Right.
Of the 5,300 franchises I brought in, all of our training is on how to be a CEO and an entrepreneur, not on how to be a tax preparer, construction, or a groomer, we teach you to be CEO of your business.
Okay. When you are looking at, I'm assuming that you interview these people who want to buy these franchises as much as they're interviewing you, and not just, okay, can they financially afford to do this? But can you tell us some of the traits and the things that you look for when you're looking for somebody to take on one of your franchises?
Yeah, if the win-lose comes down to whether you're going to follow advice or not. So we don't let someone become a franchise until they come to training and spend 3 to 5 days with us, depending on the brand, at training. Because if at any point we see you're not going to listen, we say, keep your money, go away. Life's too short. You shouldn't be doing this. But once you listen or don't listen, pass, fail, then other things matter. Your attitude matters, and culture is incredibly important to us. And it separates the great companies from ordinary or below average companies. You have to have the right attitude. You have to be driven. Most people aren't driven. And so if they acquire a franchise, they're not meant to be self-employed. So once we see that you're going to listen, we got to make sure that you're meant to be self-employed. Not everyone can do it.
Right.
About 2/3 of the country think they want to be self-employed. But out of the 5,300 people I brought in, at least 10% of them should never have ever ventured into self-employment. They just don't have the drive. They don't have the financial resources. They don't have the risk tolerance. I mean, you got to be a gambler to be a great entrepreneur. That's entrepreneur 101 is you're a risk taker, you're a gambler. So once we decide that you can listen or you will try your best, then we look for, should you be self-employed? Do you have the right attitude? And is this the right time in your life to do it? I mean, if you move across the country or your parent, your sibling, your children, your spouse gets sick, you get sick, is it the right time?
If somebody is looking at getting into a franchise, again, you're saying that for the ones that you guys do, they have to come meet with you, they're doing some training and stuff like that. How much training should they expect after they get the franchise? Because again, we never stop learning, or at least we shouldn't. So what kind of things do you guys do for people to help continue that training?
Yeah, I like to say we'll train you till you're blue in the face. And so you'll come in, you'll get initial training. Every year you get advanced training. And we have a convention where we provide training. And the least in the brand, we're on a phone call twice a month, giving you advice and training as to what you should be doing right then. And if you ever need training, like you're weak, you feel you're weak in something like hiring or firing or delegation or marketing, we tell you you can set up an appointment 2 weeks in advance, come into headquarters, we give you one-on-one training. But my philosophy is I'll train you till you're blue in the face. I'll give you as much training as you can stand.
Obviously, this knowledge helps us, succeed for sure. Where do you see the franchise industry going in the next 5 years?
There's been a trend that's gone on for the whole 21st century that franchisors, not all franchisors are equal. And some are fantastic, like the Jackson Hewitts and the Liberty Tax and the Zoom and Grumman and H&R Block and Subway and McDonald's and et cetera. Some are superstar franchises where you can't lose except to not fail. But most franchisors fail. In the 21st century, 8 out of 10 new franchisors fail. And so there were 4,000 franchisors 10 years ago, and that belong to the International Franchise Association. There's 4,000 today. Over that 10 years, 400 or 500 new franchises have been formed. And so 400 or 500 are going out of business every year. So you got to be really careful. And to be in the top 50% of all franchisors in this country, believe it or not, you only have to have 20 locations. So you got to be really careful. And it's a unbelievable simple rule that separates the winners from the losers. It's our mantra. It's happy, successful franchisees. If you have happy, successful franchisees, you can't fail. You will get referrals and you will get validators and you will grow by leaps and bounds. If you don't have happy, successful franchise, you will fail. But most franchisors set it up to have a happy, successful franchisor, and they don't put their franchisees first. It's just like the greatest companies put their employees first. Like Herb Kelleher said in the book Nuts about Southwest Airlines that they wrote in the 90s. He said, if you want your customers to be treated as number one, you got to treat your employees as number one. Well, in franchising, it's if you want your customers to be treated as number one, you got to treat your franchisees as number one. So you got to be really careful. And you get a list when you inquire about a franchise. Every franchisor is required to give you a list of all franchisees. So you need to call them and say, call it a sufficient, make sure they're both happy and successful. Some are happy and they're unsuccessful. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I have had people that for years just floated along with their nose above water and not following the system, and they were still happy. So you got to be careful that they're both happy and they have a good return on investment for the time and the money they've spent.
Now, do you guys, as a franchisor, I'm going to assume that you guys take and you monitor financially how they're doing to be able to help step in to help them improve?
Every week, we don't, like in the tax season, again, I've been doing this for 55 tax seasons. This week is my 56th year. We don't wait until April 15th to tell you how you're doing. We watch you every day of the tax season. And if you're behind plan, we know how many tax returns if you're going to do 1,000 tax returns, we know how many you're going to do on January 8th, January 10th, January 12th, January 31st, February 2nd. It's very ratable over the, and same with our grooming. We know how many grooms you do a day when you start, whether you're on track to make your goals or not. If you're off track immediately, within a week or two, we first send you an email. And then if you don't change, we call you. And then if you don't change, we come and see you. We're obnoxious. If you're not succeeding, we owe it to you to tell you what you're doing wrong. We will be in your face saying, it says on January 30th, you're supposed to expand your hours 2 hours a day, and you're not doing it. You're headed for failure. So we just want you to understand that it's up to you, right? The system is on January 31st, instead of opening at 9 a.m., you open at 7 a.m. And that's part of the system. And that's part of what you signed up for. If you're unwilling to do it, then you're in danger.
Yeah. If you're going to go the route of a franchise, you need to make sure that you follow the plan that the franchisor has put together, because obviously it's successful for a reason.
You didn't come here to invent anything. If you think you can come into my business, in my industry that I've been in for 55 years, and you can think of something that I've never thought of or seen or tried, that's just insane.
Right. John, we've covered a lot of stuff. We could go on for days. And again, like you're saying, it's like, hey, I've been doing this for 56 years now. And, there's not too much that you're going to be able to teach me or show me that I haven't already done. So, really with franchisees, it's, make sure you follow instructions. What have I not asked you wish I had?
There's just so much that you're right. We could go on for days, but my favorite advice to entrepreneurs or anyone in life is find something you love to do, work hard, persevere. If on Monday morning you're going to work, you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place. Life's too short. And everything worthwhile requires hard work. You don't become Josh Allen or Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth or Michael Jordan. You don't become a superstar without working, putting in the hours. And so you have to work hard. And perseverance is the number one key to success. All the people I've met and I've helped, including employees in my franchise. I've never seen anyone skate through with an easy life. God puts barriers up for all of us. We all get knocked down. Perseverance is the difference between the superstars and the norm.
Right, right. John, if people like what they hear and they want to find out more about your franchises or the things that you're doing with Loyalty Brands, how can they reach out to you?
They can find John Hewitt on Wikipedia, or they can find me on loyaltybrands.com.
Great. John, I really appreciate your time today. I think that you have a very proven track record of success. And I think that anybody who is looking to go into a franchise should certainly talk to you and learn more.
That's what we're here for. We're here to change lives. So even if you don't become my franchise, I promise you, you'll learn from me, from just talking to me.
Great. Appreciate your time. Hey, this week our guest was John Hewitt, and he is the founder of Loyalty Brands, and I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.